Everybody, welcome to another episode of the Montarctica Podcast. I'm here with our guest once again, David Packouz. We've had you on before to talk about the War Dogs fame and whatnot that you had from before, your actual story, and then and also Singular Sound. The last time was when I was just getting into your Beat Buddy pedal. But anyway, welcome to the podcast, David. And it's been a couple of years, I guess, since we visited. And how's life been going for you?
It's been going pretty good. Well, thank you for having me back. It's always interesting to check in with people as a little bit down the road and see how things have developed.
Yeah, for sure. And you're kind of like me. You got a lot of irons in the fire at all times.
Yeah.
But
absolutely.
I guess real quick for those of you that haven't seen the other podcast, David. Your story, kind of a unique one, I guess. The movie War Dogs is a story kind of about, I guess, your actual life story. You and a friend that essentially sold arms and munitions to the United States government, I guess.
Yeah, that's right. For people who haven't seen it, we were government contractors, meaning we were selling goods to the U.S. government, mostly weapons and ammunition, but we sold other things as well. And it culminated in us winning a $300 million contract to supply munitions to the Afghan National Army through the federal government, through the U.S. federal government, our Afghan allies at the time. And that turned into a big scandal, which I won't give any spoilers, but it got us in a bit of trouble and culminated in me losing all the money I made in the arms business. And I got 7 months of house arrest, which I felt very fortunate to have just 7 months of house arrest, while my former partner got 4 years in prison.
That seems like a pretty nice little slap on the wrist, huh?
It was. It was a slap on the wrist, and the truth is that, I mean, I don't know how much we want to go into it on this podcast because we talked about it in the last one, but it was, I think the prosecution was more of just a cover up for to cover the asses of the politicians who'd been embarrassed, because we were in our early 20s at the time and we won this $300 million contract, and the New York Times published this unfavorable article about us that kind of portrayed us in a pretty bad way, and that caused a big political scandal. And so the Army was aware of everything that was going on up until that point, and they were happy with our service, happy with the ammunition that we were delivering. But once the New York Times published the article about us, suddenly they were outraged, and they canceled the contract, and then the Justice Department charged us with fraud, so for lying about the origin of the ammunition, because it had come from Albania, but we were shipping it from Albania, but it had originally come from China, and we weren't allowed to ship it. To give a very, very brief overview of the story, I think people who want to see it, people who want to know the full story, should either watch your previous podcast and watch the movie. It's a pretty good movie, if I do say so myself.
Yeah, for sure. It is. I mean, what was it like for you to sit back and watch the movie, after it was produced and go, man, what a crazy time that they're writing this story about my life?
Yeah, it was really surreal, in particular when I attended the movie premiere in the Chinese theater in Hollywood, the famous Chinese theater, and where all the big premieres are. And I'm sitting there in a big movie theater with my good friend Alex, who was also part of the story, but they cut him out of the movie for
really
purposes. Yeah. He was actually our guy in Albania who's doing the repackaging for us. But in the movie, they wanted to make it simpler, so they just had me go to Albania instead of introducing a new character. So the Hollywood version is a bit different than the real life version, as it usually is. I would say it's about like 70% accurate. It's mostly true, but big parts of it are a bit exaggerated or changed in some way, in
Yeah.
order to fit the narrative. It's an hour and a half movie, and they need to cram 2 to 3 years of story into it. So there's certain liberties they need to take with the story and,
Sure.
summarizing things. But it was really, really surreal to be in the theater and see Miles Teller on screen say, "My name is David Packouz, and I'm an international arms dealer." It was it was pretty surreal. I was like, "Holy crap, that guy's using my name on
that's
on the big screen." So that was pretty cool. It was really, really bizarre. Very cool. I mean, I'm not complaining. I mean, how many people get movies made about them, and particularly people who are alive. So usually movies get made about you after you're dead, if you're lucky.
Yeah.
So,
I mean,
I'm one of the few.
As many irons as you have in the fire, who knows? There might be another movie made about you by the time that you're done, man. I mean,
people ask me if there's a War Dogs 2 coming out, and I say, if there is, something went horribly wrong.
Yeah.
Because usually they make movies about things that drama that occurs and things that go wrong. It's no movie starts off and they live happily ever after.
Well, and as people can see in the background there, zoom out a little bit there, your Beat Buddy pedals. That's how I had originally kind of came in contact with you. And then I had read your name and I went, man, is that that's kind of a unique last name. It's not something you hear every day. And I went, is that the same guy that movie's about? And sure enough, it was. And I was already friends with you on socials and everything. And it came about because you'd created this drum pedal with Singular Sound. So I guess you can touch on that real quick if you want, on how you got into that.
Sure. So after the whole War Dogs thing ended, I ended up with 7 months of house arrest, which I felt very fortunate to have. And my ex-partner, Ephraim DeVerle, he got 4 years, but not because not because they treated him different. It was he committed a second crime while awaiting sentencing for the first. And so he invalidated his plea agreement. So they, instead of...
Not to go off top of the Singular Sound thing, but wasn't he pretty wild after you guys had got your sentencing and stuff? Or wasn't it something that I found out on other podcasts, I guess, that you've been on, that he kind of got a little crazy for a bit?
Yeah. I mean, he knew he was going to go to prison, so he had lots of money, so he, I guess, was trying to live it up before he went to prison.
Let it rip before they take it all, huh?
Yeah, exactly. That and during that period of his life is when he gained a lot of weight and started looking a lot more like Jonah Hill does in the movie.
Oh, really?
It's kind of funny. Okay. In real life, he was actually pretty skinny during the time period where Jonah portrays him in the film.
Yeah.
But after he was waiting, after the whole thing, after the whole thing collapsed and we were awaiting sentencing, that's when he started getting a lot of weight. And he started looking a lot more like Jonah. So it's kind of an interesting dynamic there. Yeah, but to get back to Beat Buddy, while I was under house arrest, I got 7 months of house arrest, and I was playing a lot of guitar, and because I was bored, and of course. My people could visit me. It wasn't like a COVID style lockdown.
Yeah.
So I had a lot of musician friends visiting me, but no drummer was going to bring his whole drum set over my house. It's a huge pain in the butt to move. So I bought a drum machine. For people who don't know, it's an electronic device, sits on the table with a bunch of buttons. Each button makes a different drum sound, and you can make beats on it, play it back in a loop, and play your guitar along to it. But of course, every time you want the beat to change, when it's going from like verse to chorus or whatever, you need to press a button on the machine, which means you have to stop playing your guitar. And so I thought I need a drum machine inside of a guitar pedal so I could control it with my foot and could not interrupt the guitar playing. And I couldn't find it anywhere. And so I built it myself, and it's called the Beat Buddy, which is this poster behind my head for people who are watching this on video.
I have one, and they are awesome.
Yeah,
for musicians that are out there. Like I do a lot of recording to my computer and stuff with my guitar, and of course you can put drum tracks and everything on there. But when you're playing live or trying to play, like you said, with yourself, it's tough to get the proper thing, or even especially like when you're going to improvise, like being able to stomp on that and hit a fill is awesome. It's perfect. Like what a great invention, man.
Yeah, thank you. It's so much fun. I really love it. It's a great range of musicians that use it. A lot of people who there's a lot of solo performers who use the Beat Buddy as a replacement for a drummer when they can't get a drummer, or the venue they're playing in is too small to fit a drum set. Of course, the Beat Buddy doesn't require you to split the gig money with it, so
exactly
saves you some money. But most of our customers are actually what we like to call in our company basement rock stars, which are people who just there you go, which is most of us, and myself included. It's just musicians who play for the joy of it and mostly play at home, play with their friends, and people who. Most musicians don't have access to a drummer. Drummers, everyone knows that drummers are few and hard to find because it requires a lot of equipment, requires a dedicated jam space where you can make all that noise. And so Beat Buddy is just a really fun, I wouldn't say it's a replacement because nothing can really replace a human musician. But it is definitely the second best option to having a human drummer to jam with.
One of the big reasons I wanted one is like in the studio here, we had drums and everything. And then a while back, we had an older couple move in next door. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of our jam sessions were, later at night. And I'm like, man, we can't be in here just smashing drums in the middle of the night. And actually that the Beat Buddy works perfect to keep plenty enough rhythm. And like you said, drummers are few and far between. It seems like everybody wants to be a rhythm guitar player or lead singer.
Yeah, exactly.
It's really tough to like convince one buddy to play bass and another guy, hey man, could you play the drums? No, that's super cool invention. And the fact that you came up with it after that, and obviously you've got to be a guy that your mind's always rolling because that's not your only invention. You've pumped out a few other things. You also have the looper with it and just staying on the singular sound in.
Yeah.
And we talked about it before. You have what do you call it? The Chord Buddy? Is that what's your cord winder thing that you have?
Oh, you're talking about the Cably.
Yeah, Cably. I couldn't remember the name of it. Okay. Yeah. He's got a thing that for guys that kind of like me, I DJ on the weekends also. If you got a mess of chords, he's got this thing that you pop a chord in, you wind it up, and I mean, it keeps all your chords organized and makes it look nice and everything.
Hang on, I'll grab one so I can.
Okay. Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, so for people who are watching this on video, this is the Cably. It's just a simple kind of plastic wheel, and you pop your audio cable in there, and then whenever you want to, plug your equipment in, you just pull it out, rolls out. You could, let's say you're let's say it's a 20 or 30 foot cable, but you're only like a few feet away from your amp or your pedals. You just take out a few feet of cable, leave the rest of it wound in there, put it on the floor, plug your cables in, and then when you're done, you just wind it up and you're done. In a few seconds, it's all wound up. So I came up with this idea because I was before the pandemic, I was playing a bunch of like small gigs at like kava bars and coffee houses just for fun. And but I use the Beat Buddy, I use guitar effects, I use vocal effects because I'm a singer, and so I had like 7-8 cables that I had to every gig to wind up, and I was doing the thing on my arm, and of course, when you're playing a gig, sometimes people spill beer on the cables. You have to clean them off. They get tangled. People step on them. So it was just a huge pain in the butt, and it was taking me forever to put all these cables away. And my mom is she loves gardening, and she had this big hose that was on this wheel that she would roll up whenever she was done with the hose. And I thought, I need like something like that for my audio cables, a little wheel. And they make these things for like extension cables, but they're big. They're big.
Yeah, they're huge. That's what I originally had some of those, and then I finally scrapped those. And I ended up going to YouTube and found a way to properly, to wrap my cables and then wrap them around so they stay. But and a lot of times now at my gigs, I'll take I got a 16-year-old son that'll come along to my gigs to DJ, and I'll have him wrapping cables. As soon as he sees this podcast, he's gonna be like, "Dad, get like do these things."
Yeah. If you have free labor, I guess you don't need a cable.
Yeah.
For the rest of us, the cable is.
So are you still playing some music and stuff then?
Yeah, I haven't played live. I played it like a couple times since the pandemic ended, but I haven't played regularly mostly since the pandemic because I had my little band. It was me and my brother and my friend and the Beat Buddy, of course. Beat Buddy was our drummer. But since then, we kind of fell out of the habit of playing live, and my brother recently just moved to Colombia, so now we lost our lead guitar player.
Oh wow!
So I haven't been playing regularly, but I still jam at home. It's still, I do music mostly for the fun of it, anyways. And I love playing live, but I just haven't gotten back into it. Keep on planning on getting back into it.
That's I play a lot, but I keep thinking, one of these days, one of those hit songs is just going to pop in my head, and we'll write it. And go
I hear you.
No,
I hope that happens. I'll be able to say I knew you back when.
Yeah, well, that's exactly for you too. Yeah, the same. Yeah. Wouldn't that be crazy? Also, all the other stuff that you've done, and then boom, suddenly the music career takes a jump.
That would be cool. Yeah.
So I mean, I wrote a few of the things down like we had talked. So we touch on the singular sound stuff, and you also have the looper that goes. If you guys go to the website, you can check that out. That thing's sweet too.
Yeah,
I haven't got one yet, but man, I want one because I've been smashing this. Like the way yours has the screens on it, so you can actually see where you're at in your loops.
Right.
I've been using one of the old Boss loopers forever, and they're actually a pain in the butt. They don't hold near what you have on yours. I don't loop as often as I should, I guess, but it's kind of a neat deal. But moving on to the other thing, you also have InstaFloss, and you invented that on top. So if you want to explain that too.
So InstaFloss, it came from an idea my brother and I had. My brother, he's my partner in Singular Sound. We built the company together, and but he's not a musician, so he's more of like an operations guy. He's a good business guy, but he was always complaining to me. He's like, there's the problem with the music industry is that only like maybe 10% of people are really musicians at best, and of those musicians, how many are willing to spend hundreds of dollars on a technologically advanced guitar pedal. So the addressable market is somewhat small. No, I'm not complaining. We've done really well with Singular Sound, and we've won a whole bunch of awards, and it's a good, robust business. But there's definitely limitations on how far it can grow because of the size of the industry. And so my brother and I, we were hanging out at home one day, and we were smoking weed, and as we do, and we were eating some mango, and because mango's great and it's delicious.
Mango is great.
We just
ordered a bag of dry mangoes from Costco like yesterday.
Yeah. Too. Oh, I have those too. Those are good.
I love those things.
Yeah, they're really good. So particularly with fresh mango, and even though it's juicy and sweet, it gets all the fibers stuck between your teeth when you eat it. Yeah. So we were eating mango. My brother asked me for some dental floss, and we go to my bathroom. We're both flossing in the mirror, and I tell him, "Man, this is such a pain in the ass. If we could create a machine that can floss our teeth for us, everyone would love that." Right. And so we started brainstorming ideas, and we had all sorts of crazy ideas. And eventually we landed on a design that we ended up calling InstaFloss, like Instagram, but flossing, instant flossing. And what it is, it's a H-shaped manifold like this. It uses water jets. Yeah, that's the head. And it swivels, right? So you just bite into it. And, all right. Like that. And you're done. And so it gets both the front and the back of the teeth, as well as top and bottom rows, all at the same time. You just slide it across your teeth, and it gives you a full mouth floss in 10 seconds. So we just started delivering the first units of InstaFloss about a month ago,
Oh, okay.
And yeah, it's been going really well. And
Yeah, I know you touched on it a little bit the last
yeah,
podcast, but you were just,
yeah.
you kind of went from idea to concept, and you were, I don't know if you had a Kickstarter or something out then or whatever
Right.
it was. But
That's right. Back then we were doing a crowdfunding campaign, and
that's awesome.
So we just delivered to the crowdfunding people who were supporting us in the campaign. So yes, anyone who is interested in InstaFloss, go to instafloss.com, and you can see how it works, and you could order one if you like.
As an entrepreneur myself, and I got, like I said, I got a ton of irons in the fire. I don't have any inventions yet, which is like, it's kind of always where my brain's been. But how do you manage your time? I mean, between all the different stuff you have.
I do whatever is most urgent. So
same, 100% the same. And sometimes I wait till it's really urgent too before I'm like, oh crap, now I got to get it done.
Exactly.
Okay, well, I thought maybe you were going to give me some genius that I didn't have in my head.
I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't. I would never. I don't honestly don't believe I'm a genius. I think I'm clever. I think I have good ideas, and I've managed to execute pretty well on at least a few of them. I've failed on plenty of things I've tried at too. So, nobody's perfect, but yeah.
I was chatting with ChatGPT the other night as I was laying in bed and couldn't sleep.
Yeah.
And I was really spitballing a bunch of, let's say, renewable energy tech ideas. And ChatGPT came back and told me I'm on an incredibly innovative path. And I was like, well, heck, thanks, ChatGPT. At least the AI thinks I'm smart.
Yeah, exactly. Well, if the AI thinks you're smart.
I got it. I'm always also telling please and thank you. So if the AI does take over, maybe they'll spare me. But
they'll spare you. You got to be nice to our new robot overlords.
Exactly. I'm gonna throw on the screen real quick. So why I actually contacted you for this time is you got another iron in the fire, which this is really cool. I'm going to pop it up real quick.
Sure.
It's War Dogs Academy. So essentially, like we talked with the movie, what your movie was about was you guys making government contracts. And now you've actually put together an online class to teach other people how to do this.
Exactly. So the way that happened was, and we just launched this literally a few days ago is when the course went live. So it's great timing that we're talking about it now.
Yeah.
But the way this happened is ever since the movie came out, I've had a lot of people contact me on Instagram, through my various social media channels. And I have a lot of people asking me to teach them how to do government contracting because, usually the request goes something along the lines of, I'm a young guy like you were in the movie. I just got fired from my job. I got a new kid on the way, just like you. I'm really desperate. I'm willing to work 18-hour days. I'll do all the work and give you 90% of the profits. Just teach me something, right? And I feel bad for people who write me. I do like to help people, but I literally have hundreds of people with a similar story, so I can't help them all, even if I tried. And even if I wanted to and had the time, I don't know who's serious about this. I don't know if I'm wasting my time.
Exactly. And how do you don't want to spread yourself so thin if you have all these other irons in the fire. And
exactly. And
of course, and new media.
And I literally don't have time, considering all the other businesses I have, that I don't have time to teach everyone. So about 9 months ago, I got a call. I got a message from a guy named Logan out of the blue, and I thought it was going to be similar to all the other messages I've gotten. But he said, I just wanted to let you know that my partner James and I, about 5-6 years ago, when we were 21 years old, we watched War Dogs and we thought to ourselves, man, if these two guys could do this business when they're like 21, 22, why can't we do it? And so they threw themselves into it, and they took them a lot of work, a lot of mistakes that they made, but they kept on doing it. They persevered. And 5-6 years later, they have a multi-million-dollar government contracting business. They were successful at pulling it off. And so Logan just wrote to me saying, hey, I just wanted to let you know that your movie was an inspiration to us and wanted to say thank you. And I thought to myself, man, that's super impressive that they actually did it and taught themselves, because I've never heard of anyone, at least no one that directly contacted me telling me that they've actually managed to do this on their own. I mean, I didn't do it on my own. I had my former partner teach me, and he had his uncle teach him. So it's actually not an easy thing to learn by yourself, because there's a lot of rules and hoops you got to jump through and things of that nature.
You got to be very patient reading through their stuff and their contracts, because it's
very patient. Yes, it does take a lot of patience, a lot of perseverance. The government does not write things in exciting, easy to read ways. It's
so leading up to this podcast, or right when I contacted you, that one of those same nights, I also, like with the other irons in the fire, did the same thing, kind of like you with InstaFloss, where like all the other stuff I have is kind of compartmentalized, but I also run a cell phone repair company, mostly because everybody has a cell phone.
Right.
You know? So I went down the rabbit hole looking into some of the government contract stuff, and hey, everybody in the government has a cell phone. Some of them have issued cell phones. And so I started digging deep through the government websites, just like that. And like you said, once you start reading into the clauses, the laws, the bills, I mean, like, you have to be patient, and you got to do some digging to get through that stuff.
You really do. The
fact that you're putting it out there for people to be able to learn from your experiences.
Exactly.
Is huge.
Exactly. So I had, when Logan contacted me, I realized, I mean, I've literally hundreds of people who are asking me to teach them how to do this. And I've been banned from doing government contracting for 15 years. So
when's that time up? Is that
it actually just recently passed, so I can do it again.
Jump right back in and tell the whole government InstaFloss.
Probably, yeah. We're
mandatory InstaFloss for all cabinet members or something.
Yeah, for all military members.
Yeah, there you go. You
can't have good, healthy soldiers without healthy teeth.
Well, health insurance. Health insurance is always about your body, but it doesn't include your teeth and your eyes. So maybe you got something there.
There you go. Exactly. yeah. We're definitely going to be looking into it. So I realized, my information might be a little bit out of date. I haven't done this business in 15 years, but I've got this great story. I've got all these people who are contacting me. So why don't I partner with these guys who are currently in the business and have on their own built a multi-million-dollar successful government contracting business. And so together we put together a very extensive course. We also brought in some retired contracting officers who work on the government side to give kind of like the insider government perspective of like what gives you the best chance of winning contracts and things of that nature.
Oh, nice.
And we put it all together in an easily digestible course, both video format as well as written, because people learn in different ways. And we made it in small modules, so it's not too overwhelming. And we have some like little quizzes to, help you retain the information. And we just, as I said, we just launched it a few days ago, and we already had the people who were waiting for the course to come out. A few of them just went through the entire course in a couple of days, and they because they're super gung ho, which is awesome. And they really found it very, very useful, and they're off to the races. They're working on setting up their corporations and registering it with the government, and they're looking for contracts to bid on. And the thing that's really the most exciting about it for us is that we don't want it to be just a sale of a course and that's it. We're working on building a community. So we want War Dogs Academy to be more of like an incubator for government contracting businesses. So to that end, we have a forum where people who are part of the academy can talk to each other and build business connections and partnerships. And one of the most important aspects of it is, and one of the big challenges of doing government contracting is that you need to have some sort of financing capabilities, right? So, for example, if you get a contract from the government to sell them, 10,000 handguns, let's just say, right? You need to pay the manufacturer or the supplier of the handguns in advance before they ship it. And then you need to pay the shipping company in advance ship it. And then you need it once it arrives at the destination and to the government and they sign off on it. You need to wait usually about 30 days for them to pay you. They pay net 30, which means
I was going to say anytime I've worked for government things, I don't get paid right away. It feels like
no, you never get paid right away. It's net 30 is pretty standard, but some places will do even longer. Some agencies will even do net 60 or net 90, depending on the contract.
Does somebody need to have their own business essentially before they start, or is this something that they can jump in and start getting ideas of what to tell the government?
Yeah, so you do need to have a corporation. That's it, a corporate structure. So, and we go through that about how to set up for people who've never done that before, how to set up a corporate structure and register it with the government. But you don't need to have an established business. You can literally go from zero, no experience, and you could be winning $1 million contracts within a year if you work really hard and are lucky. And we go through all that. And so just to go back to what I was saying before, one of the big challenges is financing, because if you're someone who's brand new into the business and you don't have a whole bunch of money lying around, which most people don't, right? You need to be able to finance those contracts. And so the good thing from an investor's perspective is that federal contracts are pretty rock solid as long as you deliver on them, right? Because the government is never going to run out of money, right? Yeah. They are literally the ones printing the money. So as long as you deliver what they ask for, they're going to pay you. It's not like in the private industry where there's always a risk that whoever you deliver the goods to decides to screw you over, decides not to pay you, or they go bankrupt or something happens. The government, because it's not their money, right? As long as you follow the terms of the contract, they have no problem paying you, and they will pay you. They're never going to go bankrupt. So, and if they do, the entire economy collapses, and then we're all in a world. Yeah, exactly. Then it doesn't matter what industry you're in at that point. But so we have a network of investors who are ready to fund the contracts that our students win. So we are providing financing capabilities for War Dogs Academy students in order to help them actually deliver on the contracts that they win. And that is an enormous advantage for anyone just getting started in the field, because
that's huge.
Most people don't have those connections. And even if you win the contracts, you can't succeed and deliver on the contracts unless you have that financing. So we expect our goal is to make a lot more money off the financing of contracts than off of the money we make from the course.
Oh, okay.
And because there's just so much money. I mean, the course we're charging, I think it's currently $1,000, though we may be putting the price up in a bit. So get it now if you haven't yet.
Yeah.
But like even $1,000, I mean, you could win as a beginner. You can win without any prior experience, a contract up to $250,000 in value.
Oh,
so So the way the government works is anything above $250,000, you have to prove that you have past performance, they call it, which is proof that you've done this sort of business before. Otherwise, you don't qualify to bid on those contracts. But for anything under $250,000, usually they'll just give it to the company that gives them the best price. That's generally what they do. So which means that someone with a brand new company just getting started can win a contract up to $250,000. And most of these profit margins for these kinds of contracts, they tend to range between 5 and 20%. Yeah. So 5% usually for the bigger ones, 20% for the smaller ones. So you could make on a beginner contract up to $50,000 very realistically in profit. And so the financing for that is going to be, I don't have exact numbers on that yet, but it's going to be quite a bit more than the $1,000 that was paid for the course. So just on one contract, we could make several times over what a student paid for the course. So we are very motivated to help our students succeed because their success will be our success.
How did you find so many other investors? Is it mostly just you and some friends, or did you reach out to other people to?
So we have, through connections in the business, we have investors who do this kind of thing. But ever since I started talking about this on podcasts, I've had a lot of investors reach out to me and saying, "Hey, I'd love to be part of this investor pool because it's a very safe investment as long as."
If the government's going to award them the contract, that's pretty much guaranteed money as long as somebody isn't running off with the money one way or another, I guess.
Exactly. Well, the way it works actually is when an investor finances a contract, there's a method to sign over the payment directly from the government to the investor, so the investor is not at risk of having the contractor run off with the money. Then
does the investor just cut the check back to the contractor?
Yes,
is that how that works?
That's how it works. Yeah. Okay. So you have the agreement, and the bank does this too. There's different programs that banks use that uses the same method, but of course, a bank will only usually finance companies that have a lot more of a track record. So that's where private investors come in. But yeah, there is mechanisms that in federal contracting for the money to be paid directly to a third party to prevent that sort of risk to the investor.
So like you said, I mean, it's obviously, as we both going through government contracts and trying to find one that you would even want to put a bid out for is, I mean, a heck of a lot of work for one person. And now you've essentially created a giant network of all kinds of people out there searching these contracts for you, and you can so I can go, all right, here's your money for this one. There's that one.
Exactly.
That's
people,
awesome.
People ask me, one thing people have asked me is, why are you starting War Dogs Academy? Aren't you just creating a whole bunch of, why don't you just go back and do government contracting yourself? And, if you're teaching people how to do this, it's just, you're creating a whole bunch of competitors for yourself. Right. And what people don't realize is that the federal government puts out 30,000 contracts every day.
Oh, wow.
Right? 30,000. So that is more contracts than any one person or even a team of people could even look at, let alone work on and deliver. So it's as much, it's as close to an unlimited supply of business as it gets. The government spends between $6 and $7 trillion a year. Defense budget is about $800 billion. And so this is like many times over any other single entity in the entire world.
Is your academy strictly focusing on the defense budget, or is it also on any kind of government contracts?
No, it's any federal contract. It doesn't have to be defense. Every federal agency has their own contracts, their own needs. So you can sell to the State Department, you could sell to the Army, you could sell to Homeland Security, you could sell to the EPA. I mean, literally every agency.
I've got a good friend that's been on the podcast here that he runs a construction business, scrapers and whatever, but I know they book a lot of contracts with their with the government, doing leveling fields and even putting in ponds and all kinds of different stuff for reservoirs and whatnot. And that's what he's told me before. He goes, there are hoops to jump through as you're trying to get set up to do this, but he goes, that's where your unlimited work comes from too, is if you get into these government contracts.
Exactly.
So and just have a brilliant thing, man.
Yeah, thank you. And the good thing about the hoops that you have to jump through is that it keeps a lot of other competitors out, because a lot of other people don't want to jump through those hoops. And if you're willing to jump through the hoops, you have a lot of business that you can win with a lot less competition than it would be in the private space, for example.
Yeah.
And there's even large private companies that don't even want to sell to the government, and they're happy to sell to middlemen, because they just don't want to deal with waiting for the payments, for filling out all the paperwork, with dealing with all the logistics and the requirements that the government has. And so that provides an incredible opportunity for middlemen to kind of be that go-between between these private businesses that don't want to deal with the government and the government. And so, and another thing is, because this is something that people ask me also, is why doesn't the government just buy directly from the factory or from whoever's supplying it, right? Mm-hmm. And one reason is because a lot of private businesses don't want to deal with the government system. But another reason is that oftentimes the government won't ask to buy just a single thing. They'll ask to buy 10 different items, and there isn't a single company that makes all those different items.
And you got to fulfill the whole contract.
You need to fulfill the whole contract. You need some sort of middleman to find all the sources for the different items, you find the best logistics solution for the cheapest shipping, put it all together in a package for the government, submit it in the format that they require. And that is why there is so much money that is available for middlemen such as what we were doing to win these contracts and to make incredible amounts of money.
What's the best way for people to just go to the website if they're interested in this?
Yeah, wardogsacademy.com. You can check it out there. We're also on Instagram and all our social.
Yeah, you guys do some great media, man. I give you props for that. Your stuff looks awesome. I was scrolling through your story, and that's when that popped up, and I'd messaged you last week.
Thank you.
That looked good.
Yeah, I'm very happy with my partners, Logan and James. They're really kicking ass. They're doing a really, really good job with the marketing and with the course and with the forum and everything. They were definitely the right guys to partner with on this. So I'm very happy with it.
Do they live down there in Florida too, or is that?
They're based in North Carolina, but they visit Miami often, and I think they're planning on buying a place down here. So, like everyone else from the north, everyone's
we're the same boat up here in Montana. It's a lot like my wife, she's originally from Bradenton Beach area down there, but the crazy thing is, like, once you were talking about the pandemic, even here in Montana, like, our housing prices have just skyrocketed because people are trying to get the heck out of everywhere else. And so Florida was one, Montana's one also, where people have just came in droves, man. So
a lot of people moving around since the pandemic.
Did you grow up in Florida or?
Well, I was born in St. Louis, but only lived there for a few weeks. And then my family moved to Israel. My family's Jewish. So we moved to Israel and lived in Israel until I was 8 years old, and then moved to Miami. And so I've lived in Miami for most of my life since I was 8 years old.
Wow, that's quite the travel from Israel to Miami.
And half my family still lives there, so I visit there like every summer or so. I visit there. It's not doing so great now. So,
I was gonna say, with everything going on now, I don't know if you want to book a trip or not.
I don't think we're probably gonna skip this year's summer trip. I
follow a lot of like the flight logs and stuff, of course, on Instagram and everything else. And you see. Well, people that are always shouting at here it goes, this flight's the one, but you got to scroll through the comments and figure out what's going on. But it's wild over there right now.
It's not a good situation for anybody over there right now. So
no. So your personal life, you also we were talking the last time. Are you still doing the parasailing stuff and
the paramotoring? Yeah. I haven't done it in a little bit. To be honest, I had a few close calls.
Did you? I was curious. I mean, it's glad to know you're still alive. But.
It kind of scared me a little. I had an amazing time doing it, and I had a lot of fun. But I had twice where I almost crashed into electrical transmission lines.
Oh,
and that
would have been a shocking death.
Yeah, well put. It probably would have been the end of me.
Oh, that's terrifying.
And, it was very scary. The wind was like a little stronger than I was expecting, and it blew me a little too close. And I was like, whoa, that was a really close call. And then it happened again. And I was like, you know what? As fun as it is, maybe I should find something I should find another fun activity that isn't likely to kill me. That's not to say a lot of people die from it. It's a lot safer than riding motorcycles, for example.
Well, I've pretty much stopped that. I've rode dirt bikes, but I a year and a half ago or so, I broke my neck skiing, and of course I've been back skiing since, but and now that I'm 41, I'm like, man, I probably better stop jumping these things the size of a 2-story building.
I hear you.
As much fun as it is, I kind of want to function when I'm 60 too. So
you have to choose your battles. And so I've been getting more into acrobatics these days, actually.
I messaged you about that the one time, the Cirque du Soleil style stuff, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
See, and I've grown up. I can still do a backflip. In fact, actually, on my 41st birthday, the kids were harassing me whether I could do one or not. So I had to go.
Oh, really?
And this after having a few drinks too, and then I'm like, well,
damn.
How about you 16-year-olds get up here and show me how to do it? And they,
Backflips are very dangerous if you don't know how to do them.
Yeah,
so,
well, and we grew up in such a small
Yeah.
town here that we've never really even had so much even as a gymnastics class. And so watching your growth through what you guys are doing, man, I've always wanted to do something like that. I wish I had something like that around here. That looks pretty damn fun.
Yeah, it is. It's awesome. It's really I'm 42 years old now, and it keeps me young. So
you're in great shape from it too.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I've been doing a flexibility class from like the circus training school. They have a Mongolian circus contortionist teaching a flexibility.
Oh wow.
Class. Yeah, so I figured when I was doing a lot of weightlifting and becoming less and less flexible as I got older and more muscular. And I realized, man, if I keep on doing this, I'm going to be like one of those hunched old people who can't move. And so I started taking the contortion class, and it took me 3.5 years, but I finally got into a full split for the first time in my life. First time in my life.
Really? I growing up all the way through high school, I'd always been able to do the full splits, spread out this way, not the switch way.
Okay.
But
I can't.
I couldn't do it now.
Yeah, I can't do the straddle split yet. I'm still working on that, but I could do the forward and backwards split.
Oh, really? See, I don't think I've ever been able to get that. Here just not too long ago, my daughter was asking if I could do it. She was taking some karate classes, and I was asking if I could do it. I got down quite a ways. I went, we better not push that any further. I'm not going to.
Don't want to overdo that. You'll hurt yourself pretty bad. So,
do you guys do shows and stuff too now that you're, like with the acrobatic stuff? Is that?
But like usually we do like a show every like Christmas time. So it's like a holiday show. I did one this past. It wasn't. I put it on my Instagram if you're curious to see it. But it's not like, I think it's impressive for me because I'm a beginner. I don't think it's impressive if you're expecting like Cirque du Soleil style stuff. But like considering I started at age 38 and had never done anything like this before in my life, I'm very proud of it.
So have you ever been to like the Cirque du Soleil shows and stuff in Vegas?
Of course. Yeah.
Isn't that cool? They're unbelievably
amazing. I actually just saw one here in Miami. They have one running in Miami right now. And,
for people that have never seen it, you can go on YouTube and also find some cool ones. I mean, they have full videos. I want to say it was maybe last Christmas or something. Yeah. I was showing the kids and I just put a couple of the videos up on the TV, and I mean, they were really well produced, and oh my gosh, it's cool to watch.
It's mind blowing.
Yeah. Especially like to me, and I grew up, I was of course I live in this small town where like football is king, and I grew up a small guy. I mean, like I'm still about 5'6", but I wrestled in high school and was always really acrobatic that way. I rode freestyle motocross, but we never had an outlet for it. I mean, other than I can jump on a trampoline and do some backflips and impress my friends. But, other than that, like we never had anything that a guy could go and do like that just because it's a smaller community. Right. And I've always thought, man, I wish I would have grown up near something like that. Or like I got friends that grew up around like Woodward, how they with the bicycles and skiing and everything. And I'm like, man, if I'd have just had that extra, the population around to learn from, I feel like I really could have had something there. But now I'm 41 and just praying my back don't hurt every day. But
well, just maintain. That's the most important.
Exactly.
Thing. Yeah. You don't want to hurt yourself for the long term. But yeah, I mean, it's all about who you're around and what's available. And I feel very lucky that I just happened to be living like literally a few blocks away from this circus training school in Miami. Yeah, and so I just go there. Usually, I try to go there 3 to 5 times a week for my flexibility and acrobatics classes, and been doing that for about 4 years now. And that's how you go from zero to hero,
Yeah, and that's that's one thing too. As we age, you get like say if you were starting when you're 16, you got quite a ways to go till you peak at age wise. Right. But like once, and of course you can still get in better shape as you get older. But like you said, it's natural that the body gets less flexible as you get older, and
which is why you have to train to counteract it, particularly with flexibility. I think that's probably one of the most overlooked aspects of health, particularly amongst men. Men tend to focus a lot more on muscle growth, and getting jacked and ripped and all that. But very few men actually stretch and it's unfortunate because if you're not flexible and you do all the other stuff, you're eventually going to pull a muscle or like a tear, like a tendon or something, and then you can't work out, and then it's like
I'd be willing to bet that I'd be willing to bet it's probably about 20% of guys our age that can actually even just bend over straight leg and touch their own toes. I mean, to be honest, like you look around,
be less.
You might be right, yeah. Like, which is wild to me that, because I'm saying I've always tried to, stay at least remotely flexible. Just I grew up as a wrestler and everything, but it's wild to me to like watch people use a magnet to pick things up because they won't bend over and grab them.
It's been really amazing because. As I said, I was really losing my flexibility, and then I started doing this circus contortion class, and now I'm the most flexible I've ever been in my life. And it's so cool to be able to just like bend over and pick something off the floor without bending your knees. You just kind of like bend at the waist and just scoop down and pick something up, and it's just super easy and effortless. And when you're trying to do something new, I like to dance occasionally, and being able to being flexible, it just allows you to do so much more with dancing as well, and everything. I mean, it's just it's worth the investment, as I would say. Anyone who has the time and the inclination to take care of themselves should really put a large focus on flexibility, because it's everything else kind of depends on that as well.
Well, and this is a huge thing too. I also I do commentary for cage fights, kind of like what Joe Rogan does.
Cool.
I'd originally put on some cage fights back in 2000, I think 8, 9, 10, something like that, with my partner, my friend Nate. Well, then at the time, this guy West had fought in our fights. He's now has bought the cage, and he's putting on these cage fights, and we got one coming up May 4th. I'll be announcing for, and that's flexibility is another huge thing, because you get a lot of these fighters, like you said, they're lifting, trying to get as much power as they can get. But the second that they get caught in a jiu-jitsu move, or they're not able to get their shoulder loose enough to come out, I mean, your arm's either going to get broke or you got to tap out. So it's flexibility is huge across the board, man. Yeah,
it really is. Yeah. The more flexible you are, in a fighting context, it gives you an enormous advantage. You can do things that other people just can't, and get out of things that would have been the end of you otherwise. So
I used to love it in high school wrestling when I'd see a guy that was just jacked, that I got. I'm like, this guy's gonna turn right over in a half Nelson, like his arm doesn't go any further,
Right.
Like it's the long string bean looking guys that are tougher to deal with usually.
Right.
And if you look through the UFC, you look at your champions. A lot of them are built that style, like
that's true.
Guy from Montana here, Sugar Sean O'Malley, he's like 6 foot tall and 145 pounds.
Wow.
I think he fights that, but that's tough to deal with when you're 5'6".
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah.
So what else you got going on in your life? Anything exciting that other than your academy and things that you?
Well, I've got a 17-year-old daughter. That's always exciting, right?
I've got my son's about to turn 17 in May too.
Yeah.
So.
Oh wow! Congrats.
And then I've got 2 daughters also, which one's 14, teenager, and then one's 7. And they keep your life pretty full.
Yeah. No, 3 of them are definitely a handful. I got my hands full with one. So
yeah.
But
she's right there in Miami with you. Is that?
Yeah. She lives with me. Yeah.
Cool.
So but I'm working on a few other businesses, a few other inventions actually that I'm developing, but none of them are really ready to be announced. So I'll probably do another podcast with you maybe in another year or two when they're ready.
How do you take them from idea to sketch to eventually a real product? What kind of take us through some of that if you could?
So that's a great question, and it really very largely depends on the actual idea, right? So obviously, and so depending on the idea, what the product is, what the idea is, will depend on what type of experts you need to make it happen. So, for example, with the Beat Buddy, I didn't. That was my first product I ever made. I never designed a product before that.
Just booming at work. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Most people have a whole cabinet full of failed inventions before they get any hits.
Yeah. I mean, I had a bunch of ideas before that, but I never actually tried to build them in a serious way. With the Beat Buddy, I was just Googling like how to make a electronics product. And there's several types of engineers you need for something like that. You need a mechanical engineer to design the case, the physical structure of it. You need an electrical engineer to design the PCB board and to pick which components are going to work on it. You need a software engineer, a firmware engineer to design the software that runs on it, and as well as a different type of software engineer to design it, the software that goes on the PC and the Mac that interacts with it, because it has its own software that comes with it that you can put your own content on it, and like your own beats and your own drum set. So all those are different engineer specialties. I didn't know any of this at the time, but pretty much what I did was I Googled engineering firms, and you can find it on Google. There's lots of companies that will promise to take your idea from napkin sketch to finished product, as long as you give them the money, right? The problem is there's a lot of them, and you don't know who are good and who are bad. And there's definitely some that are good and some that are bad. So when I first wanted to make the Beat Buddy, I must have emailed maybe like 15, 20 different companies. They probably about like 12 of them actually responded. Some of them just ignore you, I guess they have enough business. They don't need your business. And, or maybe they just have an employee who works there who's lazy. I don't know why.
You ever just threaten them like, find international arms dealer, David?
Yeah. No, I think if you need to threaten someone doing business with you, you shouldn't be doing business.
It's probably a bad idea. You're right. Yeah,
exactly. I don't think it's going to end well. I got about like maybe 12 proposals, and initially I made the classic mistake of just going with the cheapest one. And that didn't end well. It took me like 9 months to realize this guy was not going to be able to complete the project. And eventually I got my money back, but it was not easy. Because luckily I had hired him through like one of these third-party sites, like Fiverr. It wasn't Fiverr. Yeah. It was like Odesk or whatever it was.
Inventhelp.com, the one that used to have all those late night commercials.
That's right.
Remember those? So have an idea?
There are unfortunately lots of scammers who are trying to take advantage of inventors. I would recommend that nobody go with those companies who claim to just license your product and do everything for you. They're usually bullshit.
Then they're going to own your product,
and they're going to own you, and they're usually not going to make any good business decisions, and your product will probably end up dying, and they'll end up owning it, and you won't be able to do anything about it. So, don't use invenhelp.com or whoever it is. There's a lot of these kind of scammy companies who are trying to take advantage of people. It's very, very difficult to try to license patents to companies to make a product for you. I mean, you have to have an issued patent, which usually takes a couple of years and about $10,000 of costs to get an issued patent. And then the patent has to be so strong that the company can't circumvent it, right? Which is a whole other issue.
Yeah.
And not only that, but it has to be a company that's honest enough that they're not going to just screw you over anyway and challenge you to sue them, right? Because some companies, even if they can't circumvent your patent, they'll just screw you over, and they'll be like, oh, the guy who owns this patent doesn't have money, so he can't afford a lawyer to sue us, so screw him. This has actually happened in a bunch of famous cases. I think there was a movie I haven't seen it, but I heard about this movie that was called, I think it was called A Flash of Genius or something like that, about this guy who invented the variable speed windshield wipers. It used to be that windshield wipers on cars were either on or off, and it was just one speed. And no matter how hard the rain was, you just had one speed. And then this one guy, I think it was in the 60s or 70s, I don't remember the year. He realized, when it's raining lightly, you should probably have it go slower. And when it's raining hard, you should have it go faster. And he invented the idea of having a variable speed windshield wiper, and he got a patent. He actually got a patent. And he went to Ford. And he said, hey, license my patent. You guys are making cars. I have this patent. and they just stole the idea from him and gave him zero.
Oh man!
And then he sued them, and eventually he won, and he made like $25 million, or something like that. But it took him like 15 years to win. And he went bankrupt. He had mental breakdowns. His wife left him. It was a big disaster in his life. That eventually he won, but it was not, I would say, not worth it. So it is dangerous to try to rely on patent.
How have you personally navigated through all that?
So I'm lucky enough to be in a position that I try to build these things myself, to build my ideas myself rather than to license the idea to someone else.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's impossible to license your idea to someone else. I think it's possible, and people do it. People do it all the time, but it's definitely a higher risk. Well, it's a different type of risk, right? I mean, if you're putting your own money or investors' money and putting your own time into building it yourself, you're risking your time, you're risking your money, your investors' money. So it's a different type of risk. But if you try to license it to someone else, you're at a risk where they just steal your idea or they decide not to pay your license fees. And it's very difficult to, unless you have a bunch of money to sue people over, in which case you probably didn't need to license it in the first place. The patent system, the legal system in this country is unfortunately not great, and particularly not great for people who don't have money, for the little guy. There's a lot of sharks out there, a lot of predators out there who take advantage of people who are in less powerful positions.
What would you suggest if, say some 16-year-old kid with no money has an invention in their head? Where would you tell them to start from there?
Right. So the first thing, if you have an invention, the first thing I would say is the best thing to do. First you want to make sure that your invention is actually unique, and that someone else hasn't thought of it. So first you Google, right? Do the basic Google search in as many different ways as you could describe your idea. Put it into Google and see if anything comes up. Go a few pages down the search results, not just the first page, to see if there's actually anything out there. If you can't find anything, then you do a search on Google Patents, right? So I think it's like google.com/patents. You could search all the published patents out there. And because I think 99%, I think I saw that number somewhere, that 99% of patents never get turned into commercial products. Because people have ideas, they patent it, they realize, they don't have the money to do this. They realize it wasn't such a good idea in the first place, or something else comes out that's even better. There's a lot of different reasons, or it turns out to be very difficult to engineer, either impossible to engineer or manufacture, or too expensive that people wouldn't be willing to pay that much money for this particular product or idea. So there's a lot of reasons why patents don't get turned into commercial products. Even if I suppose
there's a lot of guys in their garage or inventors, weirdos that are coming up with cool things, but they're also probably not a salesperson on the outside once they do get that built.
There's a lot of people like that. There's the famous in Silicon Valley. There is the famous trope, the Steve Wozniak and Steve Jobs team. Right. Yeah. Steve Wozniak, the two co-founders of Apple. So Steve Wozniak was the technical genius who actually built the Apple computer, and Steve Jobs was the sales genius who was able to convince all the retail stores to stock this product, even though it was something brand new they'd never seen before. And he was able to figure out how to do the marketing to get people really interested to buy it. That's something Steve Wozniak probably couldn't do, as he would be the first one to admit.
Woz has really came out of his shell recently, though. Now I see him doing more shows and stuff. But when they first started, he was kind of that nerdy guy that didn't.
It only took him 50 years to come out of his shell. So they started in the 70s. You definitely need to know what your strengths and limitations are. And there's room for different types of people in a business, and there's some people who are really good at the technical aspects, some people are really good at the people and marketing aspects, and you need both. And so if you have a great idea and you realize you're one kind of person, you should try to find someone you trust who complements your skill set, and because And I also someone you like, ideally, someone, if you partner with someone that you don't get along with, it's not going to end well, just on a personal level, because you want to work with people you enjoy being around, because you're going to spend a lot of time with them. So, but before you do that, you want to make sure your idea is really good. So if you do your Google search and you don't find anything, and then you do a Google patent search, right, and see that there haven't been any patents out there that cover your idea, then you should file for a provisional patent. A provisional patent is kind of like a placeholder patent. It only costs like $150. It's very cheap. You can do it yourself. You don't really need a lawyer. A lawyer will say that you need a lawyer, but you don't really need a lawyer. A lawyer will probably charge you $1,000 or $1,500. But you could do it yourself for like $150. You just write up as detailed of a description as you can of your idea, and as well as many variations on the idea that you could think of, because it's all about, when they try to get around your patents, they try to do your idea just in a different way. So if you can think of different ways of doing your own idea, you put that in the patent application and you file a provisional patent, and that gives you 1 year of protection. So and for like $150, and which means that within a year you need to file a non-provisional patent application, which usually that one you should probably use a lawyer for. And that'll usually cost you between $5,000 and $10,000. So you have 1 year to decide whether or not it's worth to spend the $5,000 to $10,000 to get the regular patent application, either from your own money or convincing an investor to put up the money. And once you file a provisional application, the clock is ticking. You have 1 year to decide that. So you have to continue your research and make sure that you really want to pursue this, right? And so one thing I would do first is investigate the target market, right? So whoever it is that you are planning on selling this to, talk to as many of those types of people as you can, and tell them your idea, right? And don't worry about them stealing your idea. If you have a provisional patent application, then you're pretty protected, right? I mean, not all ideas are patentable, so and you don't need a patent to have a successful business. You can make a product that is not patentable and make many millions of dollars off it. It's just better to have a patent because it gives you some protection against potential competitors, but you can still have a very successful business without patents. But so obviously you have to use your own judgments about who you tell your ideas to. If you tell it to somebody who is likely to steal your idea, don't do that, But
we see that all the time with China reproducing things. You can go get AirPod Pro that looks just like it, and you never know whether.
That is true. So China is its own separate set of challenges. And the good thing about China these days actually is that they are starting to take more seriously intellectual property issues. And so if you file a patent in China, which does cost, quite a few $1,000s, like maybe $3,000, it's not as expensive.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, something like that. So if you file a patent in China, China does tend to respect their own patents these days. It didn't used to be like that, but they realized that to build a functional economy, you have to have a decent intellectual property protections, and that they were having major issues with that. So they are kind of cracking down on that now. However, that doesn't mean to say that there's no shenanigans happening in China. I'm sure there are plenty of shenanigans happening.
Then again, though, if you invent something that they decide they want to copy, you actually did make something to start with.
And that is true.
Ways. Yeah,
that's true. So there is plenty of companies in the United States that rip people off too. It's not just Chinese companies. Exactly. There's companies in the U.S., American companies, who do the same thing. So it's not necessarily.
Yeah, there's scandalous assholes everywhere, no matter where you go on the planet.
There really are. Really are, and that's just part of doing business. But I would say once you talk to your target market, make sure that they actually like the idea. Find out before you tell them what you're planning to sell it for. Ask them what they would be willing to pay for it, right? And you ask a bunch of people that. I would say at least 5, ideally 10. To get kind of the range of the prices, because if it's something that's truly unique, you don't know what the price should be. Nobody does, because it doesn't exist yet, right? So when I came out with the Beat Buddy, like I asked a whole bunch of my musician friends, and I got ranges from like $100 to like $1,000 of what people were willing to pay for it. And I asked a bunch of people, and eventually I realized, the sweet spot is in the $300-ish range, right? So currently we sell it for $379. Our manufacturing costs have gone up in the last few years because of inflation and all that. So we've had to raise the price, but we started out at like $299. And so that was a sweet spot, and that's still too expensive for some people. And there's plenty of people who would be willing to pay a lot more, but you want to find that sweet spot in the bell curve where most people would be willing to pay for that price. And once you know what your target price is, right, or at least a range, right, it doesn't have to be exact, but a range, then you want to find engineers who could actually build this thing for you, right? And that's when you Google, depending on the product. If it's a simple mechanical product, you don't need an electrical engineer or software engineer. You just need a mechanical engineer, right? And the ideal company or engineering team is a company that's built products that are similar to what you want to build, because every product in every industry is unique and it has its own quirks and challenges. Like, for example, with InstaFloss, right? There's issues that you have to deal with when making something that people stick in their mouths that you don't have to deal with a guitar pedal, right?
Can't choke on it. Yeah,
exactly. Or, the materials need to be food grade and safe. And, you can't have like materials that are unsafe to put in your oral cavity, as they call it. So there's different challenges. And with InstaFloss, we're using 12 water jets. The Waterpick, which is our competitor, Waterfloss, would use a single water jet that you have to like trace your gum line, outside and inside. And when you go from one water jet to 12 water jets, you need a lot more power in the motor. The water pressures are much higher, so you need to use different manufacturing techniques to prevent leaks and vibrations and things like that. And these are all challenges that we did not have to deal with when making Beat Buddy, for example. It's a completely different type of product and different types of challenges. So we picked a engineering team that had experience in making electric toothbrushes, right? Because at least they're dealing in the same general industry. It's not the exact product, but it's the same general industry. So, best is to find engineers and teams that have experience in the general industry of what you're trying to do, because they're going to probably know some of the challenges and the potential pitfalls while you're building this thing.
With an engineering team like that, is that something that you have to come up with all the money right up front, or is that have you found investors to help cover that? Or right.
So great question. So the vast majority of engineering teams will want to be paid like on an hourly basis, which means that you have to pay them like within a month of them doing the work. That's most engineering teams. There are a few engineering teams occasionally who will be willing to do something along the lines of where you give them a deposit and pay them upon completion of the product, the rest of it. That's a higher risk for them, but it's better for you, because at least you're not, because that's what they call the flat fee arrangement, instead of like paying them by the hour, which you don't know. They can give you an estimate of hours, but almost always, I would say 99% of the time, it will take them longer than they estimated, and usually a lot longer. It's usually like double or triple the amount of time that they think it'll take them. And this is not to say that they're lying. They just don't know what they don't know. And every project has its own unique challenges. So it's always best to have a flat rate if you can manage to convince them to accept that. Of course, the issue with flat rate is if you change anything in the project, they're going to increase the cost. So like if you realize as you're engineering this thing, I need to make this change, that change, they'll be like, okay, we can do that, but the price has changed because you changed the project requirements. So that is an issue with that. But as far as financing goes, you either need to have the money yourself or find an investor who's willing to put up the money, or you could do something along the lines of crowdfunding campaigns, which we did pretty successfully for the Bee Buddy as well as for InstaFloss, and that's got its own complete, separate, unique sets.
When you do the crowdfunding, have you ever? I mean, I suppose obviously there's a platform to do it on. It's something like similar to like a GoFundMe. They take a pretty good chunk of a percentage. Have you been able to negotiate those percentages at all, or is it just a flat fee that they just say, hey, here's what we get and you get this? And
they, as far as I know, they don't negotiate. So if anyone's successfully managed,
I was going to say, I mean, never know until you ask, I guess. Huh?
That's true. But when you're doing, so you want to pick a crowdfunding platform that has a decent audience, right? Because then they'll bring the supporters to you, or at least some of them. And like, for example, Kickstarter is the most famous crowdfunding platform. But the bigger the platform, the less they're going to negotiate, because they're dealing with tens of thousands of people every day. So they have no reason to make an exception for any particular person.
Here's one that I just found out, I mean, of a negotiation thing. And I never knew this, just my PayPal business account. And I get paid, like just for my DJ gigs and stuff over it. And they'd always been charging this astronomical fee if somebody doesn't add you as like friends and family, on there, same as like Venmo. I called them and the guy goes, well, have you tried to negotiate your fees at all? I said, I didn't know that was a possibility. So I started talking with him. I got my fees knocked down over 50% of what I was paying before just by calling PayPal and saying like, man, this is ridiculous. I'm not going to use you guys if it costs this much. I'd rather have them send me a paper check. And he goes, oh, well, no problem, sir. Go look. And it took him about a month. But he goes, go look. And it got it done and literally dropped all my fees. And all I had to do was just call him. But you never know until you ask.
Yeah, that is very true. That is very true. You never know until you ask. I've never heard of anyone negotiating Kickstarter's fees down.
No, me neither. I was just curious. I mean, a guy like you that has had some successful products. I didn't know if maybe that's something you call and like, hey, we got a product we're going to bring to you. We know that this thing's going to take off in the market. Are you willing to negotiate, or else we're going to put it on another platform? I guess I didn't know if that's a thing. Or...
So what was I saying? It's possible that you can negotiate with the crowdfunding platforms, but I've never heard anyone doing it successfully. I think you're probably more likely to successfully negotiate with the equity crowdfunding platforms. So there's different types of crowdfunding platforms. Kickstarter and Indiegogo is more of a like a user-focused or end customer-focused crowdfunding platform, where pretty much for giving the creator money, the supporters get in return usually a product.
Yeah, pre-sales of the product, essentially.
Exactly. It's more or less a pre-sale of the product. They call it something different to cover themselves legally. It's more considered a donation legally, so that if the creator fails to deliver, you can't sue them. But that's not to stop people from suing failed creators in the past. It's been egregious and things like that. What turned out to be, there's been some fraudulent crowdfunding campaigns that have happened. And so that's resulted in the lawsuits, of course. But there's other types of crowdfunding platforms, such as I'm trying to recall the name of it, Republic and Start Engine, and that's like a crowdfunding platform for investors, where people will give you money for a percentage of the company.
Oh, okay.
And so
kind of like an online Shark Tank, then, huh?
That's exactly it. So it's pretty much you just do your online pitch and you put it on the platform, and if investors are interested, they can invest various levels. I mean, they can invest small amounts, they can invest large amounts, and they set up a legal framework where all the investors are managed in a specific legal way, and so it's not such a huge pain in the butt to deal with them. But for those platforms, I believe there might be a little bit more leeway to negotiate some of the fees. I think because they can usually tell if they think that your campaign is going to be very, very successful. They might give you a little bit more leeway, or they may not negotiate the fees, but they may be willing to give you some extra promotion or something like that that you want instead of reducing their fees. So I think that I think they deal with less people. Less people are doing equity crowdfunding campaigns than and customer crowdfunding campaigns. So because they deal with a lot less people, and there's also a lot more hoops you have to jump through to do those investor type crowdfunding campaigns. So there's a lot more preparation involved to set yourself up for a crowdfunding campaign like that.
And you're obviously good at connecting people, or at least making connections in that. Have you done most of that in person, phone calls, or you've just finding people online? Is that how you've been making your teams building these? Or
you mean
like for any of your inventions or anything, like
right.
say even with the War Dogs Academy, you obviously you explained how you met them, but it does take a lot of these things take more than just one person.
Oh yeah, no, I mean almost everything takes more than one person. Very few businesses are a one-man shop, especially once you get into business. Once you get the idea off the ground, then you're going to need help. I mean, most inventors and entrepreneurs start off by themselves or maybe with one other partner. And then once the business starts pulling in money, then you need someone to do customer service, you need someone to do accounting, someone to do logistics, someone to do marketing and social media. And the bigger your company grows, the more people you need to help out, because the more customers you're dealing with, the more issues you're dealing with. So that's something that tends to happen naturally as your company grows. But yeah, I would recommend for most people just starting out, keep your team as small as possible, because it's just easier to deal with less people, and also you have less overhead. You don't have to worry about paying all these people. So there's kind of like this mentality, I think, that kind of came out of Silicon Valley, of get a bunch of investor money and try to grow as big as possible. And that can work in some cases, but most cases you usually just end up wasting a lot of the investor money, and then you own nothing because the investors take it all, and sometimes they'll fire you and replace you as CEO. So like what happened to Steve Jobs?
Even with OpenAI recently,
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
guys,
they had
product, and then you show up at work, and then you show up at work, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, hey, the board voted you out. Like,
exactly.
I invented this. What do you mean?
Board with OpenAI, it wasn't the investors who kicked him out. It was actually the board, which were not even owners of the company, and they're a unique situation because they set up their company real weird in order to kind of mitigate the risk of artificial intelligence. And I guess it's questionable whether their structure was good at what it was intended to do. So I think
it's wild. Have you been using any AI for anything?
Oh, I love it.
Me too. I do anyway.
Yeah. I mean, look, every technology is a double-edged sword, right?
Yep.
Every technology can be used. A knife can be used to cut your vegetables or to cut your throat.
Exactly.
It's every technology can be used. Nuclear technology can use
as a graphic. I've done a lot of graphics with Chat GPT and stuff. I've been a graphic designer long before AI came out, and then now it's you either learn how to use it or just say goodbye to what you use it.
Yeah, you're gonna get left behind. I mean, that's
I'll pop this up real quick. Check this out.
Sure.
That's
very cool.
Fully AI, but it's just something I just did with prompts,
Yeah.
I love it. Sitting there spending a day of drawing everything together. You prompt it,
just
and
type it out. Yeah, and if you don't like it, you prompt it again. It's great. I've been having a lot of fun, and this is me saying this as a musician. So I hope the musicians in the audience don't crucify me for this, but I've been having a lot of fun with the new AI music generators.
I've used some of them too.
Suno.com is one I've been using. There's a new
Which one
that
you
came
say?
out.
Suno,
SUNO. That's a lot of fun.
I think I've checked it out. I haven't used it yet though.
Yeah, it's really good. It's surprisingly good. It's not perfect, but it's surprisingly good. You could put in your own lyrics and you have just whatever style of music you want and do a description, and it just generates a complete song for you, like full production and everything. And it's just so much fun because like I've been using it to like make custom songs for my friends. I make a lot of funny songs.
Me too. I use it I've been using ChatGPT just to make up like some hilarious lyrics and things. Or
exactly.
Hey, I got this song. rewrite this song as if you're James Hetfield, or
exactly.
write a Kanye West song as if you're a pirate, or like, I mean,
it's so good at
anything,
it.
it's
so
hilarious though. Yeah. Of the things that'll come up. And then you can go like, all right, now give me some guitar chords to play this song. And then pretty soon I'm playing this song and I'm like, man, this is, it's wild, the stuff that it does.
It really is. Yeah. I've been using ChatGPT to write the lyrics as well. And then I just take those lyrics and put them into Suno, and it turns those lyrics into like a complete song. So,
oh, cool. I'm gonna have to check that out. I've used a couple of them that do some beat stuff. And then like, even now with using like Adobe Illustrator and stuff, it automatically, you put something out and it'll go, do you want to use AI to generate something out of this? And I'm like, yeah. I mean, sometimes, I just recently just a week ago, put on a comedy show here, and I had AI help me build the tickets just to make the process faster. And man, it saved me hours of times of what I'd normally do sitting behind Adobe Illustrator making these things out, So.
Oh yeah, no, it's an incredible time saver. And I think that people are scared of it. Like, they're scared of like every new tool and technology. But once you actually start using it, you realize, your work is going to change, right? But it's not going to go away. You're just going to be able to do things you weren't able to do before.
Here's something that was huge for me the last week with this comedy show. I called out to the venue that we have it at, and I said, how big is the room? So they send me the exact dimensions of the room, and I go, okay, well, my portable staging is this size. I'm going to have this. How many round top tables of seats of 4 can I put, and how many regular general admission seats can I have? And within seconds, ChatGPT files it all out and gives me a layout diagram and goes, you can fit 75 people in this room.
That's so cool.
I'm like, I would have had to go out there and shuffle chairs around, repeatedly to try and get the right design. Yeah. And it kind of goes, well, we're going to put a 3-foot aisle down the middle for servers. And you can tell it's for a comedy show. You can tell it, and it will like give you, I mean, like, it's so cool the way that it can go through and analyze and figure out exactly, what would probably be in your best interest to be able to do it that way.
Yeah. It's such a time saver. It really is. I think people don't really realize the full capabilities of it. I mean, I don't think even the creators realize.
We're all learning as it goes. Is the thing.
Exactly.
I also created a GPT, or just how you can create your own one that kind of acts almost as a business partner to me with all my businesses. But I had entered in all the information of like where my interests sit at the moment and where my businesses are, and then like I can go in and go like, all right, ChatGPT, here's what I got on the agenda for today. What do you think would be my most productive? And it will come back and tell me like, you'd be better off served doing this, leave that to this, or call somebody to have them handle this. And I'm like, man, that's, instead of me sitting in the corner fighting my own head of like, what should I do? Or, the way my ADHD brain works, jumping on the next newest thing, that he can kind of guide you right through to what to do.
Yeah. And it's just going to get better. I mean, they keep on improving it. They improve it so fast. I think they just put out a new update recently that improved its logical reasonings. I think just a few days ago.
It's awesome now.
Yeah.
Have you used any other ones like Grok or anything like that?
I haven't really. I'm kind of like a tech nerd, so I do watch like a lot of YouTube videos where they like various AI related YouTubers will test like head to head the different systems. So the best ones currently are, you need to pay for them, like Claude 3 Opus, you need to pay for. So I already am paying for ChatGPT Plus, and so because I'm already paying for that, I'm going to need to be convinced that something else is significantly better, in order, not just like a few points better, which is kind of what it is now.
I've told my wife, Netflix has raised their money. I go, here's the two things that like of my subscriptions that I just can't live with. YouTube Premium, in which they just up there.
Love that.
But man, there's so many times I love to be playing YouTube and just shut it off and put it in my pocket, so you can still listen to it.
Yes.
And you have to have the premium to have that, and to get the ads out of there. And ChatGPT Plus. Once I started using ChatGPT Plus, and then I tried to take it off for a month, I went right back in and signed back up within a couple days. I'm like, I gotta have it.
It's worth it. It's worth it. It just saves you so much time. For $20 a month, it's so worth it.
Even like certain things in the store, you can be like, I walked by the other day, pick up some fish, some orange roughy. And I'm like, give me a recipe for this. And boom, it comes out. Or like at Easter, I'm going to the grocery store and they had all these hams, and they had a ham there. It was a pecan praline glazed ham. The regular hams were on sale for like 97 cents a pound. The pecan praline glazed one was like $60 some. And I'm like, wow, it's just us three. So I go to ChatGPT. I'm like, give me a recipe for a pecan praline glazed ham. Boom, right there. I went, spent a couple bucks as all extra on the regular ham and went and made that ham.
Right. There you go.
Yes. As I'm standing in the grocery store.
It earns its monthly cost right there.
Yeah, exactly. Right there. And it's been huge for me. Even like even promoting that last comedy show and stuff. I went through and I tell you the truth, like I've seen like your ads for the War Dogs Academy, and that's getting across well. I put out some ads like on my Facebook for the actual comedy show and paid money for them. Those didn't go across near as good as like some of my regular content. But I went on ChatGPT and kind of said, well, why is this not working? And then it gave me some other ideas to pop up, and we did, and it helped a ton. But
there you go. Yeah. It's incredible that it's super. For me, it's like a lot of people are scared of it, but maybe it's just because I'm an optimist. I'm like I'm very excited for it, because I think it's just the things that people will be able to do when you have like an intelligent system helping you. It's like having having your very own like personal assistant, right?
Or even in fact, I'm writing my DJ contracts, and I said, act as a lawyer in Montana,
exactly,
and help me write out this contract. And it comes out, boom, by law, states the statutes of the law, like everything else, all on it, and it did all that without me having to call a lawyer.
Yeah, and you do, at least in its current state, you do need a check to make sure.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, make sure that
it's not making things up, because it does that occasionally. Yeah, it does hallucinate, as they call it.
Yeah, you'll get. I'll get the text, and it'll say like ChatGPT is acting up or whatever it says with it. That's usually when I want to jump on and see if I can screw with it a little bit, see if I can get it to tell me something crazy. But it's pretty neat the way that it does that kind of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
How about design wise? You think that you'll end up using AI as far as designs and stuff? That's something I like to go down the rabbit hole, is asking it, how would you redesign this product, or even like with renewable energy, different things like that, just to go, what are the latest innovations?
So I've tried. Yeah, I'm sure it's going to get there. At least from what I've tried so far, it has not been that great at like doing like detailed design work. Like I actually asked it to, I wanted to see what it would come up with as far as like for the Beat Buddy. So I gave it a text description of like what the Beat. Oh, hang on. I apologize.
Oh, go ahead.
I'm just getting this call.
No problem.
So what were we talking about?
If using ChatGPT on Beat Buddy and that.
Oh yeah. So I was kind of curious to see what it would do. Like, so I wrote a text description of like the different features of the Beat Buddy, and I said, give me a rendered image of this product, it was super ugly, and it wasn't even accurate.
Yeah, the image renders are more like I found like they're good for, if you want to make a dreamy picture of something, but as far as an actual product, I haven't got it to
it's
pump out anything even close to what I want. Even like logos, like you could do a general logo, but it still doesn't get text quite right.
Yeah, text is rough. Yeah.
In fact, I've even put it in, I've gave like just say if I used this text on Montana or something and sent it to GPT, it said, can you find me the exact font on defont.com or something? And it's usually pretty far off on those still.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not very good at text, but they're working on it. It wouldn't surprise me if like the next one or two iterations they solve that.
Well, here's something. The other day I took a picture of, I put a new beer fridge in the garage in here, and I took a picture of just the label on the beer fridge of the specs, and I said I live in Malta, Montana. I use Northwestern Energy for my energy supplier or for my power supplier. How much is this fridge going to cost me a month?
Wow.
It did all the calculations. It says this fridge is going to cost you an extra $8 a month on your power bill.
Damn, that's
cool.
Like,
well,
that's
I
really
was like,
cool.
that is helpful. Something like that to just go, that's pretty awesome to know.
Yeah, that is very cool. Yeah, I mean, there's so many ways you can use it. I think it's people, it's interesting. I've noticed this thing about people where we don't have like naturally we're not really aware so much of the tools that we have, like on a habitual basis. So for example, like I found myself doing this too. Like I'm wondering, like, oh, I wonder, about this particular question. And like my first habit is to say, who would know that I could ask about this? Yep. Really, the first thing you should do is just Google it, right? Because if it's on the internet, you're going to find it, and you don't need to know someone who knows that. But throughout human history, whenever you wanted information, you needed to find a person who had that information. So that's how we're built. We're built to think, who would know that I could ask about this thing? When really what you should be doing is Googling it first and see if it's out there. And we just, even though Google's been around for 20 freaking years at this point, or is it 25 years at this point? Then it's our habits are very, very deeply ingrained. So I think
the brain's still wired that way.
Yeah, our brain is wired that way. And I think it's going to be the same thing with AI, where we're going to have to get into the habit of thinking, oh, this problem I have can be helped with these AI systems.
You're going to have to get the Neuralink before you can rewire your brain that way.
I think it's not, you don't have to get the Neuralink. You just have to realize the possibilities and just get into the habit of thinking that way. That's really all it is. Would
you take Neuralink, you think?
I mean, definitely not in its current form.
No, I don't think I would in the current form, but I mean, if you see that it's suddenly like people are getting a huge advantage.
Right. It would have
I look at it also, I'm like 41. How many more years, have?
Right.
I got to have that, like Google it, back of my brain.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the trade-off of upsides to downsides. I mean, everything's going to have its upsides and its downsides. And there's no way for us to know what either of those things
I'd hate for somebody to be able to push a button in a lab somewhere and all of a sudden I go rogue, that.
Yeah, exactly. That's a downside. That's a potential risk that someone else could mess with you from outside. But I wouldn't. I think most people are going to be very hesitant to have brain surgery unless it's something that's extremely necessary.
I guess if you're paralyzed or it's something that can
sure. No, if you're paralyzed, I think that's a very big advantage.
I think for now though, I'll keep just typing it into my cell phone for
I mean, also the voice recognition now is so good that for most situations you could just talk to it, and I think that most people would prefer to just talk to their computers than to drill it.
I think one of my son's, he's an incredibly smart kid too, but he's one of his favorite things with the talking to the AI is how you couldn't just go on there and get it to give you a recipe for napalm, but if you tell it, my grandma used to tell me stories of how she used to build napalm back, and like you can get it. So he's always
you can trick it.
Yeah, he's always messing around with it, trying to trick it for certain things. I'm like, you're gonna end up on a list, bud.
Yeah. He's what do they call it? Red teaming is a big issue. They hire people to try to break the systems to see. So they call that red teaming. And so if he's skilled at what do they call it? Jailbreaking the AI systems. That's a potential job that he could have in the future, is red teaming AI systems. That's going to be one of the new jobs of the future is trying to break AI systems. So it's not necessarily a bad thing that he's developing these skills.
That's kind of what led me down that government, like other than talking to you and looking down their websites is since I run an electronics repair business, and I've built quite a bit of electronic different things. I was thinking about, like, here in Montana, they have gaming machines, gambling and stuff. And I was like, first I go down the rabbit hole because I actually have friends that build the Keno machines. So I'm like, what does it take to start the actual business of it? Well, and then of course they have independent test labs of like exactly that. They got to find a way that they can't manipulate the machines. And then I go down the rabbit hole of, well, what licenses do I need to be in an independent test lab? And like you said, you start reading through all the government contracts and it's boring. But boring. Man, I learned a lot going through them all. I learned a ton on different things. I mean, even just simple Keno machines that we have here in Montana, like they give you a bonus round where you can get like 250 times your bet. I didn't know that it's actually in the law though, that when they go into a bonus round, that bonus round has to pay out at least 50% or less of what it does when it's not in the bonus round. And that's written right into the game. So like, it's just not your random number generator. is going to hit more during the regular games than it would during that. And I didn't know that as I'm like looking through the software and the programming of it. And
yeah, that's
so like
very
lots of things in the fine print that you end up reading,
yeah,
But,
yeah. That's actually another great use of ChatGPT and similar systems is to simplify complicated text. So if you're trying to do government contracting, and we've been suggesting this to our students, because sometimes you can't even tell what the government is trying to buy on some of these solicitations. Like it's buried in so many documents, and so we've been telling our students, all you have to do is take the documents that the government posts and upload them to ChatGPT and ask ChatGPT, summarize this for me in bullet points, simplify it. What are they actually trying to buy? What are the requirements? And of course, you have to double check everything to make sure it's not making a mistake, but it's going to save you a massive amount of time to rather than having to go through every single document manually, line by line.
I feel like that should be written into law now that like our Congress, as they're getting these bills that are this deep, and there's no way in overnight they read that whole bill. They should have to take the ChatGPT summary or something and take a quiz on it. But
or maybe they should just write simpler bills.
Exactly. No, and that's the crazy thing, but that's the loopholes that they've figured out, I guess. So
yeah, exactly.
With you and your War Dogs Academy, that's you're teaching other people how to take advantage of some of that stuff.
Yeah, exactly. You got to work with the system you're in. That's if you want to be successful, you don't fight the system in every step of the way. I'm not saying you should always try to improve the system, but from a business perspective, you have to work with the reality that you're in.
Yep. Well, I've got to get the kids out. We're going to go out to our cabin. It's finally 70 degrees plus here in Montana. It's
nice.
Cold, but is there anything else you want to plug before we get out of here?
I think we covered pretty much everything. I think people who are interested in government contracting should go to wardogsacademy.com. People who are interested in the music technology products that I've made should go to singularsound.com. And people who have teeth, which is all of you, should go to instafloss.com. And
nice.
And I'm working on several other businesses, but they're not ready to be announced yet. So
definitely reach out to me if you get something else going, because I'm always curious.
Absolutely.
Like I said, I've kind of had that sort of brain my whole life anyway. But man, it's been fun talking to you again, and thanks for coming on.
Likewise. Yeah, my pleasure.
And like I said, keep in touch if you come up with anything crazy, or if you ever even make it up to Montana, man, we'll show you a good time up here.
Of course, I've actually been through Montana. It's beautiful. It's been beautiful. Yeah, it's one of my favorite states. So I'm a big John Denver fan, and he's a fan of Montana. So
you know what's fun? Yeah. So on our podcast here, one of my buddies on some of our goofier podcasts where we just sit around and bullshit. John Hould, you can look him up. He's a hilarious wildfire kind of guy, but his name is actually John Denver Hould.
Oh, cool. That's awesome. That's it. Yeah. John Denver's real name was not John Denver on his driver's
license. No, I know. That's
license.
the best part. He's like, my real name's John Denver. He's always saying. I was like, well, John Denver's name wasn't really John Denver.
Yeah, it wasn't. It was something really long in like Polish or something. I forgot.
Yeah, pretty wild, huh?
Yeah. That's hilarious. Wow. Well, give the real John Denver my regards.
Yeah, he's hilarious. If you ever get a chance, you should listen to some of those ones. They're wild podcasts, but they're funny as hell.
Okay.
Anyway,
I'll check
thanks again, man, for coming on. And
my pleasure.
Hopefully we'll be hearing from you again soon after you pump out some more of your inventions.
Likewise.
Yep. See you later, man.
Looking forward. All right. Bye-bye.